The lightweight division in boxing is getting really, really silly, and I just don't like the dealings in this weight class. There are 4 belts, as we know, in every single weight class. There are 4 major belts. And in this weight class, the WBC is held by Shakur Stevenson, Gervonta Davis has the WBA, Lomachenko has the IBF, and the WBO is held by Denis Baranchyk. What we know is that these guys all have different promoters. Shakur Stevenson left Top Rank and has gone to Matchroom. Gervonta Davis is with the PBC. Lomachenko is with Top Rank. And Baranchyk is with... It says he's signed to Queensberry and he has fought on Queensberry cards, but I see him on Top Rank cards as well. So where Top Rank and Queensberry are almost like they're affiliated, I can see that being one in the same per se. Okay? So in this instance, we saw that Shakur Stevenson was supposed to fight William Zepeda. William Zepeda has the interim title and he's sporting it around like it's the actual real title, which I don't rate. I don't agree with that type of movement, but this is what he's doing. And with that being the case, he's supposed to fight Shakur and he didn't fight Shakur, and it's just turned out to be long-winded for me. I'm thinking, what's going on with these weight classes? Why are these guys just not fighting? It doesn't make sense to me. So I'm thinking these guys are supposed to unify. If you're not fighting your mandatory, which should be mandatory, that's why it's called a mandatory, then you should be chasing the other champions and trying to make sure that everybody knows that you are the #1 champion. Undisputed's supposed to be a thing. This supposed to be synonymous amongst these boxers. If you can't satisfy your mandatory, you should have a desire to be undisputed in your weight class instead of being a businessman. For instance, William Zepeda and Shakur Stevenson. It's a situation that's been ongoing, and I read an article from an independent news outlet called the Boxing Tribune that I actually quite agree with. It says, let's please kill Shakur Stevenson versus William Zepeda. I'm not sure if I agree with that per se, but that's what they're saying. Let's please kill William Zepeda versus Shakur Stevenson. It's been reported that William Zepeda aggravated a previous hand injury in his recent bout with Tevin Farmer and will be out for 6 to 8 weeks. This means that Zepeda's talked about February fight with WBC lightweight champion Shakur Stevenson in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia will be pushed off the board yet again. Can we just put an end to this ailing donkey of a Shakur Zepeda matchup already, please? The stars are clearly not aligning for this one, and it will be for the best if both fighters could just move on. To be honest though, it seems as though Team Zepeda has worked pretty hard to make sure these stars never align. Seriously, how odd is it to have to work so diligently to try and wrangle a top contender into a fight with a champion? The WPC has been trying to get Zepeda into a bout with Stevenson since late 2022. When they offered the Mexican a 135-pound title eliminator in early 2023 versus the lightweight bound former featherweight and super featherweight titleist from Newark, New Jersey. At the time, Zepeda's promoter Oscar De La Hoya turned down the fight, saying via social media that he needed more exposure for Zepeda to create a super fight with Shakur. Fast forward to July 2024, when the WBC ordered Stevenson to make a mandatory defense of his WBC lightweight title versus #1 contender Zepeda. De La Hoya spent weeks before the order hyping his fighter as an all-action anti-Shakur. He even directly addressed Stevenson in a menacing video prior to Zepeda's bout with Giovanni Cabrera on July the 6th, saying, "So Shakur, you say nobody wants to fight you? Well, check out William Zepeda Saturday night on DAZN. He's begging to fight you." After the WBC decree, however, De La Hoya's tune changed completely. William Zepeda is so badass, he has 4 sanctioning bodies to choose from. The Golden Boy owner and founder said via Twitter, nobody will tell him who he must fight next. He would follow up with a further burial of Stevenson Zepeda on apparently moral ethical grounds. Shakur Stevenson, you're a free agent. You're a great fighter, a great talent, but not for me, De La Hoya said in one of his Clapback Thursdays video segments on social media. I believe that when somebody says you're not fighting for the public, I cannot promote, okay? But word got out in August after Stevenson signed a promotional deal with Matchroom Boxing that the Stevenson-Zepeda bout was back on the table, slated for an October date in Saudi Arabia. De La Hoya met that breaking news story with a terse "Stop the fake news" tweet, linking back to the news article that made the claim. It was also leaked to press around this time that Zepeda wouldn't be fighting anyone anytime soon because he wanted to spend time with his pregnant wife as she approached her due date. He'd go on to fight Tevin Farmer in November. Then Stevenson Zepeda again became a thing, this time for real in February, except now, not. Zepeda's reported hand injury will put off that Shakur bout until who knows when. He'll be stepping into his recovery time after being dropped by Tevin Farmer in a much closer than expected split decision win on the Golden Boy Latino night card in Saudi Arabia, where all kinds of weirdness happened, like drug testing for his bout being conspicuously absent and the interim WBC title bout being downgraded to a 10-rounder from the customary 12 rounds. Stevenson, meanwhile, has been recovering from his own September hand injury, which forced him to withdraw from his October the 12th Matchroom debut on the Artur Beterbiev-Dmitry Bivol undercard in Riyadh against Joe Cordina. While there still seems enough interest in Stevenson versus Zepeda by some event organizers, maybe just Saudi boxing figurehead Turki Al-Sheikh and Team Shakur, it's probably time to cut losses on this pairing and move on. From the mixed signals and intermittent backtracking, it's pretty clear that somebody from Team Zepeda does not want this Stevenson fight, regardless of the validity of this recent reported hand injury. It's not fair to the fighters nor to the fans to keep pushing this Shakur Stevenson storyline when it seems like there may never be a payoff. The fight is not so big that it demands years of Mayweather-Pacquiao will they won't they drama. Honestly, it makes absolutely no business sense anyway to even have this fight in Saudi Arabia, but that's a topic for another day. In the meantime, let's just put this matchup out of its misery and everyone can get on with their lives. I absolutely agree with this article about let's just put this to bed because it's not going to happen. De La Hoya doesn't want his fighter to fight Shakur. And he was doing this Clapback Thursday thing. And he said this big statement about, oh, if fights don't happen, it just means that the fighters don't want it to happen. I blame the fighters. Maybe that's true sometimes. Maybe that's true a lot of the times. But what's also true is promoters such as Oscar De La Hoya try to protect their fighters. Now, I don't understand why he wants to protect Zepeda from Shakur because I believe that Shakur versus Zepeda has the tactical edge in that fight, being that he's a pressure fighter and being that Shakur is a pure boxer. Them kind of pure boxers do not like pressure. It just disrupts what they want to do and it makes them throw more punches than they want to throw and it just puts them all out of kilt. But for some reason, it just looks like, from my point of view, and also from this Boxing Tribune point of view, that Oscar's trying to make this fight not happen. Oscar's the one pushing back on this fight. And I don't understand why. It don't make sense. And it's just like annoying. It's very annoying. And maybe they should just put a rest to it because at the end of the day, there's been too many times when Zepeda has just gone on like he doesn't want this fight. Or his team. Maybe not him as the person himself because I don't really hear much of him saying stuff. But I see on his social media that he's parading this belt around his hometown like he's the WBC champion himself. But it's an interim belt that he's parading. And he's going on like he's the champion. And why not just fight the champion and beat the champion? But now you're out for this 6 to 8 week period and you can't have this fight. And you put up all this posts on your socials with your hand in a sling. But then in the next picture, your hand's not in the sling and you're chilling. Listen, I don't get it. I don't like it. It's annoying. These guys have more energy of avoiding the fights than actually pursuing the fights. And it's very, very frustrating. I don't know what these guys are doing. So, in that sense, I think that the WBC should take this interim title away from Zepeda, which they won't. And I think Shakur Stevenson fight the number 2, which is Raymond Moritalia, but he might not. I don't know. Shakur needs to have a fight soon. They're talking about he should fight. Some people are saying that he should fight Edwin De Los Santos. Again, I hear Tank say he should fight Edwin De Los Santos again. And Tank's like, if you fight Edwin De Los Santos again, then I'll fight you. That's cap. You ain't fighting Shakur Stevenson. I don't think you ever fight Shakur Stevenson. That's my opinion. I don't see that fight ever happening because it just seems like the fighters in America do not want to have the meaningful fights anymore if you're signed with people like the PBC. They don't seem to really want to put their fighters in the fights that really make sense anymore. To make boxing popular. They don't seem to want to put them in the fights that can make boxing popular. Because the only way to make boxing popular is if 2 guys of good level fight each other. The fans see it and they talk about it and they spread the word. This is how it works. Where Oscar De La Hoya is talking about, he's not going to let Zepeda fight Shakur because it needs to get built up into a super fight. Who knows Zepeda? Shakur Stevenson was the featherweight champion, then he was the super featherweight champion, and then he moved up into lightweight. And when he moved up into lightweight, the WBC said, have a title eliminator with William Zepeda. And Shakur's like, yeah, I'm on it. And Oscar De La Hoya's like, no, this fight needs to be built into a super fight. How can it be built into a super fight if nobody knows about William Zepeda in the first place? It's going to take you years to try and build this William Zepeda name if you think it's going to be a super fight with Shakur. Because Shakur isn't that well known either, and what he is known for by the general public is for being a boring fighter. I don't necessarily personally agree with that notion, but that's what the general public know Shakur Stevenson to be, a boring fighter. So you can't build up William Zepeda, who is unknown, even in his native hometown, in his native land of Mexico. He's hardly known there, and yet the fans will still buy into it from Mexico because that's what Mexican fans seem to do. They just buy a Mexican man's names on the fight. I'm buying it. That's what they're on. So they will watch, and him versus Stevenson at that point was a perfect time to have that fight. Because to be fair to you, as I said, as that pressure fighter, he's supposed to have that style to hurt Shakur and stop Shakur, or at least beat Shakur. But as we saw against Tevin Farmer, it's all about levels, because you could have that style to combat Shakur's style, but Shakur seems to be operating from his pure boxer style at an optimum level, at a high kind of level. And is Zepeda operating in his aggressive come forward pressure fighter style at the top level? I don't think so. And that fight against Tevin Farmer the other day kind of proved it. Because Tevin Farmer, even though he lost a lot of rounds, they were all competitive rounds, to the point where he even dropped you in one of them rounds. And you did not drop Tevin. But you're the pressure fighter and he's the pure boxer. And he dropped you. So therefore, maybe your level isn't at the level where it needs to be, where it can beat a Shakur Stevenson. And maybe, looking on, Oscar De La Hoya knows that. And that's why he's avoiding this fight for you. Well, we'll see what's going on in the future, but it's certain that he's not fighting Shakur, because one of his handlers even said it.
But is he fighting Zepeda in February?
No. So Zepeda suffered an injury.
Okay.
All right, so he hurt his hand. He suffered an injury, so we're looking to see when we can reschedule that. But that's the fight Zepeda wants.
So for me, I think you're avoiding Shakur. Personally, I think you're avoiding Shakur. You don't believe in yourself, and you don't believe that you can beat Shakur, and you're avoiding him. Yeah, that's what I believe. And I think your promoter is actually helping you, assisting you all he can to help you avoid Shakur. Because as he said, if a fighter wants that fight, they're going to make it happen. So he can always say, no, I'm making you avoid Shakur. And then you're supposed to turn around and say to him, no, I want that fight now. If you don't make that fight, I'm leaving you. You're not my promoter no more. Ban you as a promoter if you can't get me that fight. I'm not fighting anybody else other than Shakur Stevenson. And come out in public on all these social media outlets and all these YouTube channels. All these men want to give out whole heap of interview all the time, chatting rubbish. Give out an interview saying, I want to fight Shakur Stevenson next. And I don't care if my promoter is trying to stop me from fighting him. I want that fight next. Make that fight happen. I'm calling out Shakur Stevenson. Make that happen. I don't care what needs to happen. Eddie Hearn he's with you now. My promoter ain't trying to make me fight him. You need to make this happen. Yeah? Sort it out. And before he puts it out in the public now it's in Oscar De La Hoya's court to say, oh, I don't want to make it, or to say that he's going to make it. It's in Oscar De La Hoya's court now to say why the fight is not happening. Yeah? These guys are out here ducking each other. It's crazy. Duck season. We need to start going duck hunting. You understand? Because this duck season thing is pathetic. It's absolutely pathetic, and we can't condone it. That's one segment of this lightweight situation that I'm speaking about, and we'll move on to other segments later on. But as for now, I'll see you guys in the next video.